My name is Angie, and I want to thank you for clicking play and watching this video. If you have not done so yet, please hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so you will be notified when I upload new videos. I do at least one a week, sometimes two. So again, I thank you so much. Now we will get in to today's case. Today's case will have a disclaimer, as some of the photographs will be a little disturbing, and I am cutting out some of the graphic commentary. If this case does interest you, please look in the description box below, and I have listed some sources that will contain the entire graphic nature of this case. Today's case is about Jamie Osuna. Jamie Osuna was born March 7th, 1988, to Mom Michelle, and to Dad, I'm going to call unknown because he's really irrelevant to the story. In fact, I only have two things to say about Dad. When Michelle was about 7 months pregnant, he kicked her, causing ear and nerve damage to Jamie while he was in the womb. Other than that, he did not want Jamie, and he left. Michelle would then end up with a man named Jeff. Jeff would become Jamie and his brother's stepdad. Now, Jeff didn't want either of the boys. So, Jamie's brother was allowed to go and live with the grandparents. But the grandfather did not want Jamie. He didn't like Jamie. There was no reason that Jamie could have presented for him to be unwanted. He was a baby. But nonetheless, the brother got to live at the grandparents' house, and Jamie was left with Jeff and Michelle. Now, Jamie grew up in Bakersfield, and he had a rough bringing up. And Jeff, the stepdad, was a piece of work. Like I said, he didn't care about Jamie. So most of what I'm speaking about will happen at either age 5 or after, but this one particular instance happened before the age of 5. I don't have an exact age or date, but the references herein will lead you to believe that he was still in diapers. So they were on their way back from a fishing trip, and Jamie started whining in the back seat of the car, and he was in his car seat. Jeff would get angry because Jamie would not shut up. He needed to be changed. This was the reason for the whine. But instead of pulling over and do what regular people do, Jeff decides to open up the door as the car is moving and push the car seat out. Luckily, the car seat and Jamie landed upright in the road. Did we take baby Jamie to a hospital? No, we didn't. Now, when Jamie was 5, Jeff tied him to a tree and threw bricks at him. So Michelle, I guess thinking that this is okay, has 2 more children with Jeff. And Jeff doted on those children. It is said that he was a great father and loved his children. His children. And he would withhold food from Jamie. He would make him watch as the family ate. And then he would put Jamie's food in the floor and make him eat like a dog. One night, Jeff locked Jamie outside in the rain, barefooted, and Jamie was beating on the door. "Let me in." Well, right above the door was a bathroom, and Jeff could look out and see Jamie down below. So what Jeff did was he slammed the window, causing the glass to shatter and fall down on Jamie. Jamie was cut pretty badly, and he did go to the hospital. Another night, Jamie spilled juice on the floor. Jeff got so angry that he tied Jamie up with rope and began beating him with a belt. So Michelle finally calls 911. Now, of course, Jamie was untied at this point, and he tells police, "We were playing." But he was arrested, and he pled guilty to child cruelty and inflicting bodily injury to a child. He would be back in the home with Michelle and Jamie within days. Now, Jamie's family would say that he was a loving child. And Michelle would go on to say that she had to hide her affection or showing of affection or love for Jamie from Jeff. So as Jamie got a bit older, he would ask his mom why Jeff didn't love him. And that was just an answer that she couldn't give him. So things continued to get worse in the home. And finally, Jamie was allowed to go live with his grandparents. So he's going to live with a grandfather who can't stand him and a highly religious grandmother. But by this time, Jamie's a preteen. But the damage had already been done. Even though Jamie's living situation had changed, Michelle would say she could already feel Jamie being detached. He was no longer the affectionate, loving boy he once was. So, when Jamie was 15, he would be arrested for stabbing a boy. He was sent to juvenile hall. Jeff would say to Michelle, he was glad he was gone away from them. Michelle said, this was the day she snapped and finally left Jeff. So Jamie's already living with the grandparents and already endured what he's endured, but this is the snapping moment. Okay. So she's left Jeff, and in 2007, he had a heart attack and passed away. Now, a side note on Jeff, I just want to throw this in here to be fair and thorough. Jeff's sister would say their father, Curtis, was extremely abusive as well. So I guess he just continued the cycle of abuse with Jamie, but not his two. So Jamie gets out of juvenile hall, and in 2008, he went to a party. And the party was hosted by a lady we will call Jane. If you see the sourced references, everyone that has had something to say, done some commentary, a video on Jamie, has called her Jane. You can find her real name, but I will be polite, I will be respectful, and I will call her Jane as well. Now, Jane was older, and she was the mother of 4 and a former nurse in a psychiatric floor. I assume it's a prison because it was reported that she had to retire after being attacked by an inmate where her breast implants were ruptured. Now, at this party, Jane was dancing with a man, and her nephew didn't like it. So he sought out Jamie to stop him. Jamie retrieves a knife from the kitchen and commences to stabbing the man. Which, by the way, he did not know. Jamie is arrested and charged with assault and a parole violation. So, he goes back to prison. While in prison, Jamie and Jane would develop a relationship. And after a year, she picks him up from prison, and their first stop was the hotel for a little rendezvous. Now, Jane would become pregnant from this first encounter with Jamie in the hotel. They would soon marry and have their son. Now, at some point, Jamie would begin using substances, which would cause him to become violent. So he was already a violent person, but being on these substances made him even more violent. He had a history of course, violence on humans as well as animals. Jane really went through it with Jamie. She would make him leave. He would come back, peeking in her windows, threatening her and the family with death. So in 2011, Jamie would call Jane and tell her that he had just killed a woman. So Jane calls 911, and eventually the victim is found, and her name is Yvette Pena. Now, Yvette was a 36-year-old mother of 6 who Jamie had no connection with, and he in fact had murdered and tortured Yvette. So in 2017, it would be Jamie's trial. Now, I've seen and heard conflicting reports on this. I have heard that they did a trial, and I have heard that he pled guilty, and to save the family the emotional drama of having to be in the courtroom every day. So maybe this was a preliminary type hearing or trial. But either way, he was faced with Yvette's family in the courtroom. And by this time, he is a self-proclaimed Satanist. He mocked Pena's family. Like, he would smile and grin and wave at them. And he would brag to the reporters about his love of torturing people. Jamie says he would do it again if given the chance. The prosecutor would say, "This is pure evil, and if anyone deserved the death penalty, it was Jamie." However, Jamie will be spending life without. And I do believe this is because he pled out. Now, Jamie was always given cells alone because of his violent tendencies. He had nothing to lose at this point. So they would keep him in a cell alone. Until one day, somebody thought it was a bright idea to give him a cellmate. Luis Romero would be Jamie's cellie. Now, Luis was in prison for fatally shooting a woman when he was a teen because he was associating with gang members. Now, Luis was almost up for time for his parole eligibility. And still, why someone thought it was a good idea to put him in a cell with Jamie, I will never know. This makes me think that there was some underhanded deal going on, because they knew one of two things. Either he would kill Jamie or Jamie would kill him. Otherwise, I do not see the reason for this. So on March the 9th, 2019, Luis would lose his life at the hands of Jamie. Not only would he lose his life, but he was decapitated and mutilated. And these are the details I will not go into, as they are too gruesome and graphic. I will tell you this though. When Jamie was found, he was wearing a necklace of Romero's remains. It was reported that Jamie used a makeshift knife and there has been a lawsuit initiated by Romero's family. Now, a couple of side notes that I wanted to throw in there, because there is a podcast that I think most people have probably listened to that have covered this case, where the reporter sits down with Jamie, and so you can hear Jamie speaking in his own words, and I will have it all linked below. But Jamie would say he was raised by the streets. Father was absent. Mother was an inconsistent figure. He started cutting himself at 4 years old because feeling pain was better than feeling nothing. Also, Jamie claims to have committed his first murder at age 13 and another in 2007. But he was never caught, nor has any of it been substantiated. What do you think? Do you think he did it? It would take a lot for me to believe otherwise. I mean, he's one of the most open and upfront people. He doesn't care. Now, would he boast a little bit? I don't know. So my mind is leaning in towards nature and nurture. Was he born this way? Was he bred this way? I personally believe that he was bred this way. Because Jamie endured horrible living conditions living with Jeff. And a mother that would not stand up for him. And it had to be a horrible feeling growing up, knowing that nobody wanted you. He was a baby, and the men in his life didn't want him. And now we see what Jamie turned out to be. What are your thoughts on this case? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, please check out the sources that I have linked below if you are interested in this case, as it will give you more of the graphic story and little parts here and there that I cut out to condense the video. What do you think about his tattoos? I think that's what initially got me. Was I was looking at videos and looking at news reports, and I saw Jamie and I was like, what in the world? So I had to know more, and this is what I found. So guys, if you like this video, please click the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. And share it out. Share it with your friends. Share it with anyone who is enthusiastic about true crime like we are. I thank you for clicking play. My name is Angie, and I have just uploaded.